One of the things that I've done with people who've had post-traumatic stress disorder is I've familiarized themselves with the literature of horror. That's very useful. So there's a book called Ordinary Men that details how a battalion of German police officers were turned into the murderers of naked pregnant women in Poland, one step at a time. There's a book called The Rape of Nanking, which is about what the Japanese did in China at the run-up to the Second World War. The woman who wrote that, Iris Chang, she committed suicide. It's a rough book. Human beings have a very dark side. And now and then, what happens to someone who's traumatized is they run into that dark side. Well, how would that be conceptualized religiously? Well, if you meet Satan at the crossroads, there's no necessity that you're going to recover from that. Like, these are realities. In fact, they're the deepest realities. That's why people break apart in a situation like that. They come across something that's so dark that they just can't function. Well, the first thing to become aware of is that's actually how the world is constituted. It's constituted as a landscape of good and evil. We're very bad at teaching people that. We portray it in our movies, always, in action-adventure stories, always a landscape of good and evil, a mythological quest, the Lord of the Rings, the Hobbit, the Marvel universe. You know, those are all landscapes of good and evil. What we don't understand is that is the landscape. Now, partly we don't understand it because we're in pumpkin shells, right? It's like, you know, normal middle-class existence. There's not much good in it in the extreme sense. There's not much evil in it in the extreme sense. It's all middle of the road. But that's not life.
I appreciate the fact on people who think like that, because so many people just justify their wrongdoings in their head. They justify why they did it, and they look for reasons to convince themselves on why they're sinning. Why do you think why is it so hard for people to just admit wrong instead of justifying?
Well, so that's related to that question you had about pride. We like to be right. If I'm right and you're wrong, I don't have to change. And so that's pretty convenient for me, because change, there's a desert part of change. Like, if I have to change, I have to fall apart, and then I have to put myself back together. It's very annoying to fall apart. You know, if you're arguing with your wife and it turns out you're wrong, then you have to go figure out why you're wrong. God only knows why you're wrong. Like, maybe it's a deep wrong, maybe it's a pattern, and you have to take, maybe 10% of you has to go, something like that. And that's a kind of death. It's really hard. And so people will insist that they're right so they don't have to change, because change involves sacrifice. Change involves death. When you learn something new, the stupid part of you has to go, and it has to die. And that's actually painful. You might have put a lot of work into that stupid part of yourself, you know, and then you have to let it go. And then it's not like like I said, it's not like you're better as soon as you let it go. It's no, you're just lost on that front. Then you have to figure out what to do instead. In the religious orientation, what you try to do is you try to replace insisting that you're right with trying to find out how to be right. And that's the opposite of pride. That's humility. It's like, okay, there's some pathway forward here that I could journey down if I could only specify what it was.